Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. As a Kokomi main, it's obvious we're going to see how well Kokomi works with Linnea or how well she's not going to synergize with Linnea. It's an experiment we have to run. We have to try a couple of creative teams, not cry teams with Kokomi and Linnea, not cry teams with Kokomi and Linnea, and just have a bunch of fun. Look, I'm not about optimal gameplay, hyper perfect artifacts, or getting all the best in slot characters, Iluka, Aino, because I think everyone has already seen those. You've already seen every other content creator do it. I'm more so taking the position of I've got a favorite character. How well can the new characters synergize with my current favorite character? And that is what we're about to find out. So as you can see here, the first team that I want to showcase you is something that I think a lot of people would expect, the Linnea Zabai type of core. And if we then pair them with Kokomi and Xingshu, which is also a very strong core, so Kokomi and Xingshu actually work really well together, they've always worked well together, we can see that it's actually pretty easy. It's a quick Kokomi E, Linnea E, Xingshu EQ, and then Zabai does all the damage that she needs to do. It's a very simple team, it's a very comfortable team, you don't have to worry about dying in any case, interruption resistance and all of that, and you can use Kokomi creatively as well with the artifact sets. You can use instructors, there's the not cry set that you can use on her. So basically Kokomi fills very much a bit of a supportive role, also a bit of battering occasionally there for Xingshu as well, though he shouldn't really need it. But if you really want to hyper focus on damage, then you could try and play that Kokomi's jellyfish should just give you just enough energy for Xingshu, where he does a bit more like damage. So that's like just artifact distributions and such. But overall, it's a pretty comfy team, and that is exactly what you can expect. If you want to try and pair Kokomi and Linnea with not cry units, you can try something like Navia. So basically in this case, with Linnea, you don't need to then tap E, you can just tap and then unleash her what do you call it, little robot super form, and then do a lot of hits. So the idea here then is that Linnea and Navia are going to be kind of like dual DPS, and then Kokomi and Bennett are going to be supports. In this case, Thrilling Tales will be on Kokomi, so you can see I go to Kokomi and then to Navia, so I can give the attack bonus, and then obviously Kokomi will have the instructor set, Bennett will have Noblesse Oblige, and then obviously Linnea will then support to a lesser extent Navia, so you only get 15% GRS shred, but in this case you can do a bit of dual DPS. It's not as effective as you saw in the first round, but hey, it's still an alternative, because maybe you're the type of person that didn't get a Columbina, you didn't get Zabai, but you really like Linnea, and I mean, who doesn't like pink-haired girls? I mean, I'm a pink-haired girl type of main across all of Warriors games, to be quite honest. And for me, it's just fun to pair Kokomi and a character like this. And Navia is honestly a ton of fun as well. I mean, I've definitely showcased a lot of Kokomi Navia showcases on this channel before, so I do find that especially that pairing as well is inoffensive. It's fun, so I kind of like it as well. Alright, and then finally, what I can showcase to you is maybe if you don't like Bennett, you can replace him with something like Gamona, a bit of an older character as well again. This is the idea. You just want to pair characters, see how well you can do, benchmark them. You can use the dummy DPS calculator in Millie Astral Wonderland. You can use the Abyss or like floors like this that actually are kind of neutral. I've chosen like the PMA and the what do you call it, Fontaine robot for a reason, because this is a far more fairer benchmark than enemies that are hyper gimmicky, and it's also the type of gameplay that I like in Genshin, to be quite honest, where enemies themselves are neutral and then we can just like properly compare them, and that's where I feel like things like Stygian Onslaught can then have all of the gimmicky stuff, and the Spiral Burst should really just be an artifact and an account type of check. But in any case, that's just my kind of perspective. Alright, so I think you kind of got like a good idea here of the background footage of the teams and so on. Obviously, if we're gonna go in the full way, and we're gonna now try and pair Kokomi and Linnea with some premium units, we can use characters, for instance, like Columbina, and Zabai, and you'll definitely see the difference in just a bit. So I wanted to first give you an alternative without Colombina and even without Zabai. But if you have been keeping up with Notcry and you have gotten all of these units, you'll also see that Kokomi can fit in the Notcry team, or like a more focused Notcry team, really well. So as I'm going to go through the entire Abyss right now, let's talk a bit about something else. And I think that is the fact that Genshin feels too streamlined these days. And what I mean by that is that the combat and the design of the latest characters is such that you kind of need to play them together as bundle units, but even more so if you think of things like the team's rotations, the way in which cooldown cycles interact. All of it's designed in a way such that if you, for instance, try and pair someone like Zabai with non-Notcry units, then you're going to have a far more of a difficult time. In other words, if you have 4 units and you want to try and squeeze in a Zabai, or you want to squeeze a Nefer, or even Flins, it's very difficult to get a lot out of them. And then obviously because characters like Loma and even Colombina are more support-like characters, you can't really fit them and let's say just put them into some random old Hyperbloom team, let's say with Colombina or Loma. It just doesn't feel really well. So it's not just the cooldown cycles, it's also the effectiveness of the character and what you can actually get out of it. And for me, that's very different from how things were in the past. So in the past, we didn't have all of these restrictions of Night Soul or lunar reactions, but basically characters were far more generic in terms of their combat kits. Yes, they had a bit of a quirky gimmick or goofy thing, but generally speaking, you compare characters with a lot of other characters and the cooldown cycles could still make a lot of sense. For instance, if someone like Nehida or even Techneri came out, then it was kind of fun to put them with Kokomi and let's say Yamiko. The cooldown cycles would still allow you to do constant quick swapping, which was really fun. But I feel like Genshin kind of went a route of saying, well, okay, we want to curate the experience you're supposed to have, and not only that, we also want you to kind of spend more on the game by trying to force you into having your character only work with some of the latest characters. In other words, all the Notcry units belong together, etc. And I feel like that level of corporate streamlining reduced a lot of the creativity that we had in the Abyss. So in the past you could just try and put together a lot of random teams, and I know Hoyo tried to kind of compensate for this by saying, well, here is the Imaginarium Theatre, try your hand at being creative, but that's not really the same as building your characters to their max potential and then seeing what is viable in the Abyss. There was almost like a sense of the Imaginarium Theatre is very lateral. In other words, you pair a lot of characters, you want to try and get some blessings and reactions going. Whereas in the Abyss, yes, you couldn't just pair anything, but there were a lot more options. Where even if you did have like some creative teams, they still felt good to play. And that's what I kind of meant with the cooldown cycles and even the damage that you get out. But if you try and play Colombina and a Hyperbloom team, it's just not going to work that well. You would definitely want to have the Nefer Loma as the Dendro unit in a team like that. And it can work, I mean, obviously, but you're not going to get as good results as you would with the lunar reactions. And this also kind of brings me to a bit of a different point. Have you noticed that the Hexerai characters aren't as effective as the lunar characters or the lunar reaction characters from Notcry? I'm wondering whether the whole Hexerai thing was just another ploy to get people to kind of spend for the older characters. In other words, we're giving a buff to Klee and to Venti and all of these sorts of things. But in their heart of hearts, you know that Hoyo really just wanted to shill the lunar reaction. And I think they kind of used the Mondstadt characters as a bit of a filler to that end. Because look, Varka is not as strong as some of the Notcry units. I think people have pegged him at about Fontaine, and you guys can correct me on this, but I think he's between a Fontaine and an Atlant type of DPS power level. And apparently Nicole, the other character coming out, is not going to be as strong. as we see with some of these Luna reactions. Although, once again, if you listen to leaks and people, you always got to take it with a grain of salt. I'm pretty sure Genshin, if they want to shill a character, they'll make it work. But given the team restrictions and the streamlining of it, I'm not so sure. I think definitely the idea is that for the next couple of months, or until we get like the cryo archon and stuff in August and or whatever, September, October, it's gonna be Lunar reactions all the way for quite a bit until they're kind of power crept by whatever we're gonna get in Naya. And this to me honestly just keeps on feeling a bit icky, because you can see that Genshin is not just a game that's made out of passion, very much like how Wuwa has gone in terms of its direction with combat. It's more all about just getting that corporate sale. So I do lament that fact. Hashtag Shao. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think about what I've just said about Kokomi Linnea. Do you like it? Don't you like it? And yeah, also what you think of this outro. Keep well. Cheers.